Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Hampton with the Hampton Law Firm. Was it assault or was it self-defense? That's what we're going to talk about here today. Understanding the difference between a factual situation and whether or not the law would say someone acted out of an assault or whether or not their actions were justified as self-defense. Now, if you wait around to the end of this video, I will also give you a free ebook, What to Do If You've Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Thanks for joining us here today. And by the way, if you like what you hear today and you like the content you're receiving, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content just like this. Okay, let's jump into this. So listen, we know this. We live in the, if you are here in the state of Texas, we live in the great state of Texas, and we know that every Texan has the right to defend themselves against the use of force or violence. However, it's important to understand what the law says. Sometimes people jump into situations and they find themselves sitting in an attorney's office knowing that they acted in self-defense, but yet the police chose to respond differently. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is some defense strategies for assault charges and understanding when self-defense does come into play. So we're going to look at when the use of force is justified and when it may cross the line over to assault, because there are some bright line rules of examples where the courts have seen very clearly how they rule under these types of circumstances. Now, I want to give you some scenarios, okay? First of all, the Texas Penal Code states that you are justified in using force against another person when you believe it is necessary to protect yourself. Now, specifically, you are entitled to use force to the same degree as the other individual coming at you, as the other party's use or attempted use of unlawful force against you, all right? Now, I'm going to give you three very prominent, common examples of where we see somebody in this type of situation. Number one, maybe someone has unlawfully and forcefully entered or attempted to enter into your home, your vehicle, or your place of business or employment, and they've come at you very aggressively. Number two is someone has unlawfully and forcefully removing or attempting to remove you from your home or a family member from your home, vehicle, or place of business or employment. Or number three, someone was committing or attempting to commit an aggravated offense against you, kidnapping, sexual assault, murder, robbery, one of those type of examples. This is kind of the three top scenarios of where we see self-defense kicks in. Now, I want to remind you, an assault is only considered self-defense, okay? If the assault of actions of someone against another is only considered self-defense in these scenarios when when you did not provoke the person against whom the force was used. So in other words, you don't want there to be any provocation, not baiting someone to get into a fight and then claiming there was self-defense. And must not have been otherwise engaged in criminal activity at the time it was taking place, okay? These are some of the very basic requirements of self-defense in Texas. Now, also, this is one that people don't think about. Texas law does entitle you to use force to resist an unlawful arrest or search when a peace officer or any other person acting under the direction of the peace officer uses greater force than necessary to make the arrest or perform the search, when that defender reasonably believes they are using greater force than necessary. Now, I don't want to throw a whole bunch of legal jargon at you on this, but if an officer steps out of line and you're getting beat up, you have the right to defend yourself. It's really that simple, okay? So, Texas self-defense laws. Here's some sticky situations, maybe some tricky situations that we're going to look at. So sometimes maybe there's an issue where tensions get a little out of hand, emotions get a little out of hand, and all of a sudden you got to get into a situation and you want to back your way out of it. If a person does provoke another party, let's say it did start off two guys in a bar and they just start talking trash to each other. If a person does provoke another party but abandons that provocation and says, hey, look, and clearly communicates it, I've changed my mind. No, we're not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm leaving. I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm not getting in an argument or fight with you. I'm leaving the bar. I'm not going to be a part of this anymore. And if that is clearly communicated, then as that person leaves, if the other person continues to try to be aggressive and now start that fight, you can act in self-defense. okay? So you have to clearly abandon the provocation part if that takes place. Additionally, under a portion of Texas self-defense law known as the protection of life or health, here's important to know. A person is justified in using force, but not deadly force, to prevent someone from committing suicide or inflicting serious bodily injury to himself or herself, and using force, including deadly force, against another person when immediately necessary to preserve someone else's life. Okay? So those are some of the standards that are out there in knowing when you can step in to help someone else as well. So if a person has the right to be at the location where the force is being used and has not provoked that person they used the force against, and there was no criminal activity going on, that person is not required to retreat before using force. Let me make this very clear. In many other states, there's a duty to retreat. If you get into an altercation with someone, you have a requirement to leave. Not in Texas. In Texas, there is no duty to retreat. It's very important that people understand that. So many people refer to it as stand your ground, right? A stand your ground law. And so you've heard that analogy that your home is your castle, that and in many states that's not the case, but in Texas that is. It's very clear you have a right to defend your home and your person. So it does not ever require a person to retreat from anyone who is being aggressive or threatening towards you in your home, okay? So no duty to retreat. And essentially, the Texas Penal Code describes the use of equal, up to, and including deadly force as legal when you reasonably believe someone is attempting to use force in order to unlawfully enter your habitation, okay? So if someone breaks into your house in the middle of the night, you're allowed to fire away. They are not allowed to be in your home. And so it's very important that people understand that. There is a very highly limited definition of what qualifies as a person's habitation. If you have questions about that, you can give me a call on it, but there's kind of some nuance in the law. But now, those are some examples of what is self-defense. Let me give you some examples quickly of what is not self-defense, okay? There are some situations where it's never justified in a court of law, and this is the area where people get a little sticky and they're not sure. When someone is only verbally provoking you, and I understand how some people are. There are some people who can seem to do more with their words than they do with their actions when it comes to provoking. If they are only verbally provoking you and there is no sign of a weapon, no physical contact, or no threat of physical contact, the use of force will always be considered an assault. And that's just under a well-established Texas law. Also, when the actor brandishes or even simply possesses any kind of weapon while just discussing differences between him or herself or disagreements, it's never justified to then immediately go crazy on them or act out in some assaultive way, okay? Ultimately, no matter your circumstances, the law says you have a right to claim self-defense when someone is being violent towards you. Now, I know there's a lot of gray area on this, but there's also a lot of misinformation out there and just bad general advice about how to handle yourself in a situation like this. Maybe you or a loved one has been wrongfully charged with an assault. Maybe you'd like to have a discussion about your case scenario. Feel free to call the Hampton Law Firm at 817-877-5200. We would be happy to answer your questions, and we service the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the North Texas area, and we look forward to hearing from you. I promised you if you waited around to the end of the video, I'd give you a free ebook, What to Do If You've Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Click the link below, and I'll be happy to send it to you. Thanks again for joining us. Look forward to seeing you in our next video.